This is pretty nice. Alright, that's enough fooling around with this. No way I'm doing the whole episode like that. Alright, hello everyone. It's me again, Real Human Books, also known as Real Human Being. I just picked this up from Trick or Treat Studios. This is my Halloween costume, guys. The Grabber from The Black Phone. That is the book, a short story, I mean, by Joe Hill, and the excellent adaptation by Scott Derrickson, film adaptation that was also written by Joe Hill, by the way, who is Stephen King's son. Now imagine if Joe Hill kept his dad's last name and he'd be Joe King. Anyways, yeah, I'm a big fan of that story. They just confirmed a sequel. I'm really interested to see where they could even go with that, frankly. But that's not the point of this video. This is a weekly update. Now I'm trying a few things new here. I put some software on my microphone, testing some noise reduction, because yeah, guys, I've got a big computer. It's right here, and it's loud, and I know that can cause problems. So hopefully this audio is fine. But yeah, so I'm fully recovered from my last video. I had salmonella. I've been fine since like the Monday, and I've decided, I think Saturdays are going to be the weekly update days from now on. It just works. I don't have to work. I only work weekdays, and typically I'm home alone, so I don't have to worry about, volume. So I'm going to do that from now on, I think. We'll see how it is. This Saturday, I was kind of thinking waiting till Sunday because tonight I'm doing a big thing, the Aero Theater annual Horrorthon, which is I believe, what is it, like a 13-hour, six-film marathon. Mystery films, usually all 35 millimeter. I went last year. It was an incredible experience. I don't really want to talk much about it though because it's one of those things that's kind of like a big tradition inside joke thing. If I kind of explained it or talked about it, because guys, I'll just say this, it's not just movies you're going to see. I'll just leave it at that. You kind of have to be there for it. So I'm really excited this year. They've kept the movies a mystery. Last year they had hints, and some of them kind of gave them away. Like I correctly guessed Horror of Dracula. I correctly guessed Mortuary, the Bill Paxton film, not the Toby Hooper one. Anyways, so that's happening tonight. I'm a little tired because I tried staying up late so I could wake up late, but I have a problem where I always sleep 6 hours. I don't know why. Um, Now, my room's kind of a mess, and this is actually a pretty good segue because one of the ways I was trying to stay awake was I bought Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted, which is the VR game, and I'm kind of moving things around my room right now to get my VR running again. I've got a Valve Index, haven't touched it in a while because I've just, been busy. My schedule's starting to kind of open up now, which is great, so hopefully that means more reading. Guess what, guys? Spoilers, I didn't do much reading. I had a lot of work to do, so yeah, I guess we'll just get out of the way now. The Stand, I am still reading. Frankly, guys, I don't think I'm making my goal of reading all of Stephen King's books in publication order up to The Gunslinger, aka Dark Tower Book 1, by the end of October. Guys, it's not happening. I'm still reading The Stand. I'm lucky if I finish The Stand at this rate. After The Stand, I believe I have The Dead Zone, Cujo, and then The Gunslinger. It's not happening, guys. I've only got a few days. It's not happening. I mean, rest assured, I'm going to keep reading. I might just indefinitely read King from now on because I am definitely enjoying it, and I don't want to wait an entire year to read more. So, yeah, The Stand is very interesting, though. I'm almost halfway done. I'm in the chapter right now. It's like Mother Abigail's big backstory. We kind of got teases of her with her dreams that she's having. She's many characters, just like how people are having nightmares of Randall Flagg. People are having dreams of Mother Abigail. It's very interesting. So there's that. The factions are starting to get formed. But we've got this amazing scene of Randall Flagg freeing Lloyd from his prison, and that scene was terrifying. I mean, seeing it's a horrifying thought to be locked in a prison. Everyone around you is dead, and these corpses are festering, and no one's coming to save you guys. No one has the key. And there's this incredible scene where Randall Flagg shows up almost like an angel to Lloyd, and he conjures like a black eyeball that turns into a key, and he unlocks the door, and that's when Lloyd realizes, wait, this door did not have keys, like it was electronically locked. So very weird, surreal sequence. Now Lloyd has become Randall Flagg's right hand man, It's awesome, man. I'm really excited to see where that goes. Nick has a new partner, Tom. He has this gimmick, which I kind of knew about before because it's pretty famous, mostly due to the Mick Garris miniseries. But Tom has, he is mentally handicapped, and he thinks that everything is spelled moon. So he'll say like Moon, that spells and something. So I already know when I review this on Storygraph and Goodreads, I'm gonna say Moon, that spells masterpiece. I'm sure everyone else has done it. But yeah, I mean, I'm loving this book, and I kind of do have to take my time with it. I do not want to rush through this. I mean, I rushed kind of through Towers of Midnight. That was one of my big rushes. It's a Wheel of Time book. It's an almost 900-page book. I read it in like 3 days, but it was because that was the climax. It was a lot of rising action and not rising action. What I mean, you know what I mean, guys. A lot of action, and I couldn't stop. This is different. This is a slow burn. This is an epic, and I'm. It's kind of hard to keep track of everyone, guys. So I don't want to rush this. I'm loving it a lot, honestly, guys. Like, if it keeps going like this and it sticks the landing, this might be a contender for like one of my favorite books of all time. Like, I'm sorry, Wuthering Heights. You might get replaced pretty soon. This book's been everything I've been asking for. There was a really dark sequence where this child, 5.5-year-old, suffers horribly and has this horrible death. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is something I haven't gotten since like reading Dark Age, the Red Rising book by Pierce Brown. It gets that dark, guys. So there was that, but I did take a break. I admit, I did take a break. I read Howl's Moving Castle for the first time. Classic, kind of young adult fantasy by Dan Wynne Jones. I read this because of my college's book club. They had this was their book of the month for their book club meeting. So of course I read it in like 2 days while I was sick, actually, which was kind of nice. You're reading The Stand book about a deadly virus and you're sick, and we kind of don't want to read it after certain points. So Howl's Moving Castle was a lot of fun. I loved it. I have, of course, seen the film by Hayao Miyazaki by Studio Ghibli. I've never liked the movie, frankly. I don't know why, it just never appealed to me. And I actually just recently watched it with someone who like loved that movie so much and was like, "Oh, you'll change your mind." Not only did I still not like it, that person actually liked it less. So I'm not trying to dog on the movie. I know everyone loves it, and it is a very aesthetically beautiful film. But after reading this book, guys, the movie's a joke compared to the book. I mean, after like a third of the way through, the movie just kind of stops adapting this book. And I'm okay with adaptations doing their own thing, but with House Moving Castle, it feels like Miyazaki just got this great, fun story and then just kind of twisted it into something it wasn't. He turned it into, his political talking piece, which, guys, don't get me wrong. I agree with the film's politics, right? War is senseless, and it's worth exploring the kind of darker side of that, but that's not what the book was about. There was no place for that. He got this wonderful little quaint, charming story, and a romance also. People talk about the romance in the movie. Guys, there is no romance in the movie. It's all just kind of uh, teasing, I felt like. And I felt like the romance in this was very well handled and very well earned. It was subtle, but it was there. And it just, I don't know. There's some changes that I completely understand why. The story is actually surprisingly complicated and hard to follow. Everything kind of snowballs in the final act. But I kind of liked that. I liked how there's a lot of loose threads, and you think they're just kind of little tangents, and they end up paying off. And then the book gets kind of weird with this sort of like Frankenstein-inspired turn towards the end, with like assembling the perfect human. Essentially, it was really cool, and it was much more interesting than in the movie, where they changed the scarecrow a lot in the movie, and it just kind of becomes this dumb reveal that really has no bearing on the plot as a whole. I thought Hal and Sophie actually were much better characters in the book. Sophie is able to take more charge, and she's much stronger of a character, and of a woman too. And the movie kind of just becomes Hal's story, and Sophie really has nothing to do after like the first third of the movie besides kind of just stand around and gawk. And it's really disrespectful, frankly, compared to how awesome she really is in the book. And then Hal in the movie is very charming. In the book, he's actually like a scumbag. He's like a sleazeball womanizer, and I loved that. Hal also, if you don't know, in the book, it's explicitly stated that Hal's is from Wales, and he basically created a portal into this fantasy world to kind of run away from his responsibilities. There's a lot of funny moments there. There's an entire chapter where he takes Sophie to Wales to see his family, and she doesn't know any of the technology. She gets scared by cars and by computers. It's a lot of fun. And it's funny because it's teased early on with Hal wearing like a college letterman like rugby jacket. It's so funny. Like Sophie sees this jacket that says like Welsh football or something, or Welsh rugby, and she's like, "What? Like, what is that?" And that made me think, wait, what is this? And there's little moments like that that I love. One of my favorite things is when a fantasy story or a story set, in a time that's not ours, and then there's like a technology from our time or like a concept from our time, and it's explained in a way where the characters are kind of experiencing it raw for the first time and they don't really know what it is. They don't say, like in this book it happens where Sophie sees fireworks coming out of Hal's castle, but she doesn't know what fireworks are, so she says they're kind of like these like blinding loud lights. I love when stuff like that happens. Wheel of Time does it very well with character Eludra and the subplot with her building the dragons, which are cannons, guys. They're cannons, and it's awesome. Okay, I'm not talking about Wheel of Time. I'm talking about House Moving Castle. If you have only seen the movie, I can't recommend this book enough. It's guys, it's so light, it's so small. A child can read this, but it doesn't feel like it's talking down to the audience. It's a very timeless story. It's very charming, and it's this quaint little fantasy and a good story about not running away from responsibilities, from not self-deprecating yourself. That's a big thing with Sophie in this versus in the movie. It's like kind of completely removed. So I thought the book was very profound in that way, and it was just a lot of fun. Also, great romance, good action, surprisingly, some pretty good action at the end, and it was a lot of fun. And those are the only two books that I've read. This will Stan I'm still reading, and House Moving Castle I finished. Those are the only two, guys. Oh, another thing is that House Moving Castle is actually part of a trilogy, which I had no idea about. Apparently, the second book is very inspired by the Arabian Nights, so I would really want to read that. The consensus in the book club that I was at was that the sequels aren't that great, but I want to give them a try. It kind of sounded like they were a little upset that the sequels weren't about Hal and Sophie. Guys, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with a kind of episodic adventures with maybe some cameos here and there of Hal and Sophie. I prefer that because I thought the way that their story wrapped up in this was beautiful, and I don't feel like I need to see another adventure with them. I'm okay with them showing up. I'm okay with them being supporting characters, but guys, their arcs are done, I think. So yeah, I'll probably do that soon. Actually, I quite liked that book a lot. So even though it was a little confusing at times. I might actually give this as a gift for my niece because she likes Ghibli, and I think she would really like reading this. So that's it for books, guys. For movies, I'm still doing Hooptober. Obviously, because of my illness, I'm behind. I was trying to catch up, guys. I've actually watched quite a bit, but I'll keep it a little short. This whole episode I'll keep a little short. I watched Frenzy by Alfred Hitchcock. It's his second to last film, I believe, and it was weird. It was cool. It was definitely his like sleaziest film, and there's actually nudity in it. Yeah, nudity in a Hitchcock film, really? That's crazy. I wish we got more 70s Hitchcock because I feel like he was really made for that time. Hitchcock was always kind of a perv, but he was like a closet perv. In this movie, he really gets to let it all out. It's great. It's very inspired, I felt like, by like Giallo films, and it feels kind of like obviously Brian De Palma was inspired by Hitchcock, obviously, but this movie felt like Hitchcock doing De Palma, if that makes sense, because De Palma, very sleazy guy, and this movie is sleazy. There's an incredible sequence of the killer where he's trying to retrieve an identifying pin that the woman that he killed, unknowingly grabbed off of him. But he threw her body in like a potato truck, and it's this like tense sequence of him just struggling to break her fist to get this out, and worry that the guy will catch him. It's such a good sequence, guys. I rewatched Fire Walk with Me, by, the Twin Peaks film. I'm not going to get into that right now. It's in my top 10 of all time. I think it's one of, if not the most profound film about trauma ever. That deserves its own story, its own video. I'm not going to get into that. I watched The Deadly Spawn, which was a very small film. I believe the budget was only like $15,000. I was expecting like a fun, campy, kind of lowbrow movie, and I definitely got that. But this movie was really legitimately well made. I think it's one of the most well made no budget films I've ever seen. What they did with that money, I mean, guys, the movie looks and sounds like crap, but the story is actually great for this type of movie. There was real like themes and direction, and the effects are unbelievable. I mean, like seriously, some of the best practical effects I've ever seen in my life. If you're a fan of movies like Slither and Tremors, you gotta watch The Deadly Spawn. It's on YouTube. I believe it's public domain, and it's great. It's about these killer worms from space, but the movie is actually almost like a haunted house story because it takes place pretty much entirely inside of one house as these things like fester in the basement. Guys, every scene in the basement is so incredibly shot. It's so tense and claustrophobic and gross, and the gore is unbelievably good for that budget. It's insane. And the movie gets like, kind of profound. It kind of talks about real fear. You know, the one of the main characters is this kid who's obsessed with monster movies and like trash, just like just like me, just like a lot of us that would watch this type of movie. And he gets interviewed by a psychiatrist, and he's like explaining, "Yeah, I know that it's all fake. I'm not scared of that. I'm scared of people. I'm scared of real things." And that's like, wow, like I don't know, it was kind of profound to me. And then so you get this kid who says this and loves and indulges in all these gross monster gore fest movies, and then you throw him into one and he responds like realistically with real trauma and fear. It's maybe I'm looking too much into it, but I thought it was really profound. So I can't recommend it enough. I think it's like one of the best films I've ever seen, frankly, in terms of its budget and what it accomplished with it. The Deadly Spawn is a 10 out of 10 in my book. And then I saw Five Nights at Freddy's. Yeah, can you tell? Because I was playing Help Wanted earlier. So I watched the movie. I was very excited for the movie. I'm actually a big fan of Five Nights at Freddy's. I haven't played all the games, obviously. There's a lot of them. But I love the story, I love the lore, and I have a lot of respect for Scott Cawthon. I feel like he's one of the few like really organic success stories in the U.S. nowadays. And I thought the movie was a I'm not gonna lie, it was a bit of a disappointment, but it was good in its own way. It's just it made some weird changes to the lore that I felt like kind of didn't really benefit the film. I get that the lore is really complex, right? It's very complex, and you really need to streamline it for a feature film. So I get that, and I get that this is its own thing, right? But I feel like there could have been a way, maybe. I don't know how, but I feel like there could have been a way. I won't go into spoilers, but I'll just say it's regarding William Afton's lineage. It's a lot of that has changed, and I feel like throwing in Vanessa from Security Breach kind of takes away from a lot of the lore. And I'm trying to say this without spoilers. I mean, the movie's on Peacock. You can watch it from your home right now. But um, how do I say this? I don't know. I just don't really know what the vision for this series is. I think the sequels will be much better. I really do. Uh, William Afton, unbelievably perfect casting. Unbelievable. It's the worst kept secret ever. It's Matthew Lillard. We know. Perfect. No notes. Perfect. We don't get much of him. I wish we got a little more, but guys, that's what the sequels are for. And guys, the effects by the Jim Henson Studio, no notes. It was great. They looked perfect. They moved perfectly. I just, I don't know. This is obviously a kids movie, and it's not quite a horror film. It's kind of more of a paranormal thriller. I kind of wish we could get like a very violent R-rated scary movie. Guys, the thing is with Five Nights at Freddy's as a horror movie versus a game, for Five Nights there has to be five mornings, right? There has to be a story. It can't just be all horror, all thrills the whole time. If it was one night, easy, you can easily do that. But it's Five Nights, guys. You can't call it One Night at Freddy's, right? So yeah, it's a tough call. I think at the end of the day, it is a good movie, and I especially respect that this is a great gateway horror movie for children, and it's pretty damn dark and kind of actually pushes its PG-13 rating pretty far in a couple scenes. If I was a kid, man, this movie probably would have blown me away. Even if I was a lore fiend and I was upset by some of the lore changes, it's very impressive for what's ultimately a kid focused film. So, not for everyone, right? I saw Twins of Evil, Hammer film with Peter Cushing. Might be the best Hammer film I've ever seen. Apparently, it's the last of a trilogy called like the Karnstein trilogy. Great film. The villain was great. Peter Cushing was incredible. Might be his best performance because he's sinister, but he's not a villain. I won't really spoil, but he has a very interesting arc that was kind of atypical for the time. I saw The Shouts. Now, The Shout is one of the strangest films I've seen. It's not Australian. It's a UK horror film by a Polish director about Australian Aboriginal magic. It's very bizarre. It's that kind of weird that's it's quiet and it kind of creeps up on you. It's that kind of weird where it seems normal, but like something is off, right? Something is off, and you can't really identify what it is that's off. Okay? So I highly recommend, although I don't know if it's for everyone. To me, I liked it a lot because it felt like a very real depiction of manifestation and like real magic, and the idea that you don't have to explain magic, right? If the person believes it works, it works. That's all I need in a movie, in a story about magic. I mean, I appreciate when a magic system's very well thought out, but I'm also okay with like, a sorcerer can do magic because he's a sorcerer, right? So I thought it pulled it off tremendously well. I saw Detective Story, Takashi Miike, and it was weird. It was fun. It's kind of like Abbott and Costello meet the Jigsaw Killer. It's this weird mix of a kooky buddy detective movie and also like this weird gonzo like tribute to like Seven, Silence of the Lambs, and like Saw. Uh, yeah, it's as strange as it sounds. The ending is hilarious and nonsensical in Takashi Miike fashion. It's on YouTube. If you want like a weirdo kind of detective story, recommend that. And the last film I saw was Kill It and Leave This Town. It was a Polish animated film. Guys, I'm gonna admit, wasn't big on it. I respect it a lot. It took about 15 years to make, I believe, and the animation style is really interesting. It's lo-fi. It's like to the point where it makes like Don Hertzfeldt's films, like It's Such a Beautiful Day. It makes them look like Disney. It's insane what you do with this aesthetic. And there's a lot of disturbing imagery, but ultimately I felt like a lot of the film was just kind of like overly pessimistic, meandering. I know that's the point. Apparently the film is a very personal statement from the director about kind of like his childhood and his memories. I just feel like it could have been told in a more interesting way. It just didn't do much for me. I will say the finale was pretty incredible. The mix of like the music and the visuals, it's where everything kind of clicked in that moment. That's the finale, and then the ending itself, it just kind of fizzles out like the rest of the film. I wish the whole movie had that kind of melancholic but kind of beautiful energy that final sequence with the ships had. Again, I respect it. I respect adult animation, weird adult animation, unconventional adult animation. Um, if you want something like that, you might like it. If you're into that kind of stuff, it just wasn't really a film for me. But I did respect it a lot. I would never call it a bad movie. There's so much effort and love put into it. So yeah, so that's all I've watched. Obviously, I'm doing that marathon. I don't know any of the movies. How funny would it be if one of the movies I named was one of them tonight? That would kind of make me mad. So what am I planning on reading? Well, like I said, I might continue with the House Moving Castle series. I believe the next one is called Castle in the Air. I could be wrong. Funny, it's kind of like Castle in the Sky, right? Another Miyazaki film. But that was actually an adaptation of Gulliver's Travels, not Castle in the Air by Diane Wynne Jones. So I'm planning on doing that, but obviously, more importantly, I gotta finish The Stand, guys. I know. And I know I haven't done any reviews yet for King. Guys, it's been hectic, okay? And I am planning my Carrie review. Don't worry, it's still fresh in my head. I have a lot of notes on it. It's just I need to kind of figure out the format, so it'll happen. Um, after the stand, I will continue with King. I've decided that. I'm not going to wait till next October. So, yeah, that's all for this week. I'll see you whenever I decide to. If I do carry next week, there we go. We'll know. Otherwise, we'll wait until another weekly update.